In the live stream, and we're live. Joel Tobeck, hello, sir.
Hi, how are you? How's everyone out there?
Well, I think we're doing strangely, is the honest answer to your
Yeah,
question.
it's a weird time, isn't it?
It is a very weird time right now. Thank you for joining us today. Yeah, as I said, we sort of just chat. We don't really have an
Yeah,
agenda in this thing. We
great.
just sort of talk about life, and not to steal anything from of any particular famous movie, but life, the universe, and everything is kind of what we talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah,
And
easy.
that's kind of what we're talking about today. I did think, though, we should probably start actually with the one thing that's dominating the news and everybody's conversation at the moment, and that is obviously Tiger King on Netflix. Have you seen it yet?
I haven't checked it out. I'm
Oh,
trying to convince
dude,
my wife and older daughter to watch it, but
you're
they're a little
actually
dubious.
you're actually kind of lucky I'm here because I'm on episode 7. I've got one to go, and I was like,
Okay.
Joel Tobeck or the final of it. So I'll watch it after this, but.
Yeah, I want to check it out because he looks fascinating. But we've just started Ozark season 3, so
Oh,
that's our
nice.
thing at the moment.
Yeah, I watched the first season of Ozarks. I wonder if a lot of Netflix, well, this is straight into your area of expertise on some levels. I wonder if a lot of Netflix puts a heap of resource into series one.
Mm,
And then, and I'm not saying that, so therefore the series after that are crap, but it's like, I often find, like, a perfect example is Stranger Things. It's a series about a tragic story about a girl who committed suicide, and then they did a second series. And I'm like, how, well, hang on, isn't that feels like one series was a good place to stop? And I watched Ozarks, the first series, loved it, started
mm.
watching the second series, and I'm kind of going, yeah, it doesn't quite have that same feel to it. I don't know.
I know what you mean. I've done a couple of Netflix shows, and they've generally been the second season of the piece.
Right.
So, and you hear people say, "Oh, last season we had a bit more money, and last season it
Right.
was a bit more like this." So, I guess there's an element of that, but I guess they're trying to win the audience in, and then try and. I mean, look, 6 months between series is a long time,
Yep.
especially this day and age,
Yep.
and we all get over it. I mean, we started Ozark 3, but I'm saying to my wife, "What happened last time? I can't even remember." Her
Yeah.
memory's amazing. Mine's terrible.
Yeah.
So I have to be reminded of what's happening.
I wonder if that's where the British, even though it's utterly frustrating at times, but have done so well with this, sitcoms that last two series, be it Faulty Towers or be it, The Office
Yeah,
or be whatever they do. This is our story. We're going to tell it
yeah,
and then we're going to leave. And,
yeah,
and, and when, like, I was a fan of The Walking Dead, which obviously is just a normal free to air show. I watched about 7 series, then kind of went, I feel like I'm done. The stories are the
yeah,
same. It's going on a bit for
yeah,
me. And so it makes me think about things like, I think I heard John Cleese once say that, in all of literature, there are 14 stories. So they
that's right.
told 14 stories and then they were done. Now, whether that was 12 or 14 or 16, whatever it was, but that was
Yeah,
it.
and remember, I mean, Faulty Towers. I mean, he was so exhausted by the end of it, and I think he had a breakdown after the second series
Yeah.
because well, not only was he trying to play that character, and I've done dinner theatre as Basil Fawlty many years ago, so I kind of know. But he was also going through a divorce from Connie Booth, who played
Polly, eh?
Polly.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think he just was like, "I'm finished." You know, a good example of something that maybe went on a bit too long was Blackadder. I thought
Oh, you reckon?
after Blackadder 4, I think that was probably it
Yeah.
for me. I didn't watch them after that. I found it got a bit too overwriting and a bit too clever in the dialogue. Like Ben Elton, I think he was on board for all of it, but it was a bit like, yeah, he was doing sort of the dialogue gymnastics, which took away from the original enjoyment of the show.
But even that, I mean, how many series was there total? Was there 5 total?
6, maybe, yeah.
I mean, so look at the American series. There's 10 or 12 seasons is a successful. So even that, if that was getting a bit laboured, it's still nothing like what. And I'm critical of the other way, but it just seems that maybe. Or the other thing is maybe, and I'm not sure if Blackadder was this, but I think Faulty Towers was, when you've got BBC money. Maybe
Yeah,
they don't need necessarily the same commercial return, so they have the freedom to be a bit more. This is our
yeah.
art, and this is what we're going to do.
And also on a cultural level, because I've spent a lot of time in the States, the television is like the pub is to the English.
Right.
TV is the thing. And in fact, when I used to do stuff in America and I'd be watching it in America with American friends of mine,
Yep.
it was an event. Joel's on TV.
Right.
It was a huge event. Whereas, so they fall in love with their characters, like Cheers went for 9, 10 years.
Yep.
They fall in love with the soap opera style of, you know what. So all of those cheers was very much based on the relationships over that period.
And I guess to almost counterpoint my own argument there a bit, when you get a good one in America, and I'm thinking, let's say Cheers, let's say Seinfeld,
Taxi.
let's say MASH, let's say Taxi, which hasn't fallen away in quality and hasn't fallen away in ratings. When they do that final episode, a third of the country stops and watches it.
That's right. Yeah, and they've got 300 million people. Yeah,
A few less since Trump's taken over, but yeah, in general. Not to be too harsh. But look, I have to say, one of the things I love about, I mean, you and I have never met, we don't know each other, but I remember you from 1991 at the Maidment Theatre with Theatre Sports Auckland. Yeah. I was in the audience for a lot of those as a student. Yeah, and I remember it was you and Oliver Driver and Dean
Parker,
and Dean Gorman.
Dino
Gorman. And you were the three young fellas, eh?
Yeah.
And I remember that.
Thanks. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, I was certainly not as good as those guys were, especially Oliver, who's an improv genius. And so I was very much the junior amongst those guys, but it's a great way of learning to trust yourself as an actor. And when I teach young actors, and my biggest thing with them is trust yourself, trust your offers and what you bring to it. Because in theatre sports, if you make an offer and someone blocks it, that's a big no-no. It's the first rule of theatre sports.
First rule is say yes on the stage. Say yes to the offer. Yep, absolutely.
So it taught me a lot about saying yes, receiving and giving, and just trusting myself as a performer, really.
Yep.
Great education.
And so I feel like you've been around, that's what, 30 years? For 30 years of my life, almost, which is terrifying to say out loud.
I started when I was 5.
Which is why I love watching television and or film, and you pop up. Like the perfect example was I was fully addicted to Sons of Anarchy. You know, and I saw you pop up, and I'm like, oh my goodness! And because I guess it's the Kiwi thing, you know, I know him. You know, you don't know him, but I know him, and he's in this big thing. So it's cool watching your career and watching what you've done. And I just put a little tweet out about it, and you look at your actual list of credits. It's like, it's pretty amazing, you know, from Lord of the Rings. I love the Underbelly series as well. I love there was several of those series. I got hooked in with the one that was based in King's Cross. I think it was the first one. And love those series. Even some New Zealand iconic classics like, you know, Eagle versus Shark, and you've been around. You've been in our living rooms and on our screens for a long time, and it feels like you're one of the whānau.
Well, thanks. Yeah, that's nice of you to say. I mean, you know, I all I can say to that is I've always known what I want to do, and I've never been afraid to try and do it. And I've always also, as I get older, I become very much more appreciative of where I'm at in life.
Yeah.
And when the work keeps coming, I'm grateful every day, all day. And I think and you can attest to this, having been 20 years in broadcasting, as you get older, you reach a point where you go, well, maybe I do know what I'm doing now. And so I feel like for me, I'm in a new phase as an actor. I have been in the last couple of years where I'm now at the point now where I've been doing it long enough. I know what I'm doing. It's not to say I don't get nervous. I don't have self-doubt. I don't do things wrong. I don't muck up, and I could be a little more prepared some days than others. And sometimes I don't quite hit the performance, and I can tell straight away when I watch it back.
Yeah.
But I feel like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
After 30-something years, you know, and my education as a kid was going to the Mercury Theatre I worked there as an usher, so I saw 7-8 shows a week. Just to be around actors and to see shows like that, all through my adolescent years, it was amazing. It was such a great education, and then I got to hang out with them after the show.
Yeah, wow, cool.
And the performers, and that's just osmosis. That's just, you know.
Yeah,
so,
well, I think I mean, not that I hold anything against them personally, but one of the saddest things in the world was when the Mercury became a church. Yeah. You know, it was one of the things. But look, I'm just going to pause for a second. I'm not actually literally pausing because we're live streaming, but you can hear my dog barking. This is this new world we live in.
You'll probably hear mine soon.
So I'm just going to shut my window. While I'm going to shut my window, I'm going to ask this question, and then you can answer it while I'm shutting my window. Although people will see me shutting my window. That road that you started on at Theatre Sports Auckland, you know, I almost think, although Lord of the Rings is an amazing, obviously one of the best movies and series ever made, And it feels like, there's those old joke. You see Brett McKenzie on a late night talk show about how all of his family was in it, and it doesn't seem such a big deal for Kiwis to be in it. But what about breaking into the American market? What about getting into the Sons of Anarchy? How does that happen for a little boy from New Zealand?
Well, because of Lord of the Rings, not Lord of the Rings in those days, but because of Hercules, Xena, etc. All of a sudden, New Zealand was put on the map in general everyday TV world in America. So what happened was Kevin Smith, my great friend who's no longer with us, was playing Ares on Hercules and Xena, and of course the way he looked. If you remember Kevin Smith, he was Ares.
Yeah, he was a Goliath of a man.
Totally. And he drew the attention of an agent over there who had taken on Temuera Morrison and Cliff Curtis after Once a Warriors. So Joe came down to New Zealand and hooked up with our New Zealand agent and said, I'm interested in this guy, Kevin Smith. He looks amazing. I want to take him to LA. Luckily for me, along the way, I was also in the stable of Kevin Smith and Temuera Morrison with the same agent. So my agent here, Robert, who had connected with Joe from America, said, what about this guy, Joel Tobeck? And he was like, well, yeah, he's good, but what has he really got? Because Joe's passed away just before Christmas, unfortunately, but he was very straight up, and he was old LA, didn't take any crap, told you straight away how it was. You're not the big dick. He used to say to me, you're not the big dick here anymore. You might be the big dick in New Zealand, but here you're starting from the bottom. And I loved that about him because he was straight up. It wasn't until he saw me at the Sky City Theatre, the Rocky Horror Show in 2001, that Joe suddenly went, oh, okay, I think this guy's got something. Because I was playing Frankenfurter. Yeah. To me, that's a role of a lifetime. And I really hammed it up and went to town on it, as I tend to do when I am given the chance. And he loved that. So he took me over to LA. And so I would go over on pilot season and spend weeks, sometimes months up there auditioning for stuff. Getting very close, and they've offered the role to Bruce Willis, so you didn't get it, But then, so I would be doing those trips on and off every 2 or 3 months. I had a family here. My wife was she gave birth to our daughter. 5 days later, I left again. It just so happened, I went back and I had been watching Sons of Anarchy in Australia. I was working in Australia. Right. And I was checking out this new show called Sons of Anarchy, and I'd just seen Green Street Hooligans with Charlie Hunman had been the lead in that with Elijah Wood, I think it was. Yep. And I was going, who's this guy? Oh, he's really interesting. So I saw he was on Sons of Anarchy, watched a couple of episodes. Yeah, it's a great show. It's really unique, awesome. Man, I'd love to do a show like that one day. Went to LA 2 months later to start my auditioning process again, do my time in LA. And my agent Joe rang and said, you've got an audition for a show called Sons of Anarchy. Have you heard of it? And I was like, oh my God, I'd love to. And I walked into the room, and it just so happened the casting woman was Canadian. I told her where I lived in Waikato, and she said, oh yes, I have friends down there, and blah, blah, blah. And she was an Olympian. So ex-sort of rower, so she knew all the Olympians from down this way. And so we hit it off that way. Just so happened the audition went really well, and that mixed with the relationship I'd formed with this casting woman got me the job. Wow. And in fact, I went back for my callback, and the producer of the show said to me, you had this as soon as you walked in the room. Cool. But that's the way Hollywood works. Sometimes it happens that way, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, not to play comparison games because I couldn't do it, but I've done a little bit of on-screen stuff, a little bit of stage stuff, but when you're going into an audition that 95% of the decision is made as soon as you walk in. So I would always get called back for, the rugby player or the bouncer or, like I played on Shortland Street, the security guard when there was a rapist at loose, it was, and you just knew, in fact, and one of the funniest things is anything I ever got, which is only a handful of roles, I never actually auditioned for. That's how predicated it was on the look. I literally never got anything I auditioned for. Literally. Yeah. The things I got, I never auditioned for. Yeah. And because that's how much it was about the look.
Yeah, well, I would back in the early days before we could upload auditions on the internet. I used to have to send my auditions to the States via videotape, believe it
Right.
or not.
Wow.
And so I remember I got my first ever pilot up there with John Leguizamo from sending in an audition tape from New Zealand, waiting for I sent a courier, the most expensive courier we had at the time. So it was there in 2 or 3 days. Les Moonves, apparently, who was the head of CBS, saw this tape and said, give him the job. So I got this
Wow.
pilot. And then other times I'd go up and audition 20 times and not get close. Other times I got jobs. They literally watched my show reel and said, we need him, get him now. So you just don't know.
Yeah. You mentioned Kevin Smith. I was lucky enough to have a little bit of an interaction with Kevin Smith. You and I got a little bit of a crossover, not because I did work for Theatre Sports Auckland,
Right.
late 90s.
Yeah.
And so we did a couple of comedy festival shows, one called Exfolios, which was a 90-minute Shakespearean improv, and Kevin came and did that. And some of the big names, Kevin came back and Jay came back and these people came back and did that, and just nicest man you'd ever met. I mean,
totally.
other than the rap party and stuff, never spent any time with him, but still, you could just see the nicest man you ever met, and just a tragic loss, I think, to everyone who knew him, and also just to the community that was around him.
Yeah, and you know what? He was, as you would know, he had a brain on him. Like he would say things every time I was with him, like, "Where the hell did that come from?" He'd have this witty comeback, and his brain was so unique. But what was most unique about him was he had this great brain. He was the loveliest guy in the world, and he looked the way he did.
Yeah.
Now, those three things don't usually amalgamate into one person. It's very rare you find that. Especially the sense of humor and the charm to go with it.
Yep.
I learned a lot from Kevin because we spent so much time together. We used to sing in bands and stuff, and we used to drink a bit when I was drinking. We drank a lot together, and he was a great guy, funny, lovely to everybody. So lovely. We'd be trying to leave venues like, we've got to go and catch a train, and he'd be still chatting to everybody. So yeah.
The descriptions of sort of the talent, the looks, and the brain. I don't know. Just I'd never thought this before, but it's like he comes across like New Zealand's Matt Damon. You think about Matt Damon when you hear him talking. Like I'm sure all of us have seen that clip on the internet where he's talking to the Fox News reporter about education and the importance of education. If he seems to be, even though we all love World Police, the American South Park guys. Yeah, we all love that, but he seems to be one of those guys who's a bit of a trifecta as well. I don't know, just that jumped into my head when you said those kind of three things don't line up very much.
Yeah, it's just odd, it was an odd combination that he had because I think part of that with Kevin was that he was not quite comfortable in one of those three aspects of his personality. Right. He was not comfortable in one of them.
Right.
And I don't think he was a natural fit to the whole hunky, muscly Hollywood type thing.
Oh, really?
I don't think if he had his choice, he wouldn't have. He didn't like being known as that guy for a start because everyone thought he was thick. Because he was a sort of like, hey, guy and with muscles.
Yeah.
So friends of mine would meet him and they'd immediately talk to him like he was an idiot. And I'm like, he's one of the smartest guys I know.
Right.
So I'd have to say to them, hey, dude, just be cool, man. He's actually a good guy. He's not this, But I don't think he really wanted to be known as the hunky, moody actor, I think, deep down, because he wasn't like that deep down.
So for you personally, I mean, obviously you've been named, and I understand there's going to be, restrictions around what, or if you can say anything, but you've been named. Have you been named to play Robin? Is that right? Is that what the moustache is for?
Robin Bain, yeah.
Is that a Robin moustache?
Yeah, although since the lockdown, I've regrown these James Hetfield ape hanger bits just because I don't like having a moustache. I look like a cop, or I look like the guy from Simpsons, the next door, the Christian Ned Flanders. So I decided to grow these bits.
Don't put that out there. That'll very quickly turn into a meme. So that's obviously I would assume. I'm saying obviously. I would assume that has been put back because of what's going on. Everyone's in lockdown at the moment. When was it due to film, and when are you? Is there an announcement for when it's going to film now?
No, we're not doing anything until we all are at a healthy point in the lockdown. which whether that's level 2, I would say it's anything level 2 and under.
Yep.
But we're hoping that it's only 6 to 8 weeks away to finish it. We were halfway through pretty much.
Oh, okay.
I showed up to work 2-3 Mondays ago, whenever it was, and we're having a big meeting saying it's at the point now we have to decide whether we keep going or not, and
Right.
we thought it'd be best not. And literally the next day was announced that we were level 3. So.
Right. Is there ever a concern that, who know if you stop anything for 8, 10, 12, 15 weeks, something could happen. People could change appearance. People could, no one wishes this on anyone, but no longer be here. Is that a significant concern you had to stop production because of the lockdown, but is that part of the conversation of concern?
Oh, of course. But, I think we definitely all want to finish it, and we were so loving what we were doing.
Yep.
As a given, as an automatic response was, well, I'm not changing the way I look. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
I really want to finish this because we all believe in it so much, because it's such a great piece, what we're doing. And so I think everyone's on board, definitely. And hopefully it's completed sooner rather than later.
And obviously, without going into anything you can't talk about, has doing the, because for people who don't know, we haven't actually said it's the Bane Murders. That's the movie we're talking about. Obviously, as you can see, the blue and white, blue and yellow in the background. You're speaking to Otago here. You're coming to you live from Dunedin. In fact, the Bane house sold, or the property that the Bane house was on sold within the last 18 months. I think a couple of years.
Is that right?
Yeah. The address.
We were due to come down there in a few weeks to finish filming, but obviously it's all on hold. So.
Yeah. But has your mindset, I mean, everyone had an opinion on this. Forget you were in the movie, but a year ago you had an opinion on this. Has anything changed in your opinion since doing the script, reading the thing, researching it a bit more?
No, and because we're not really focusing on the event itself.
Are you able to say what the focus is, or is that part of the secrecy around it? Don't say anything you even are unsure of. You're not able to say.
I don't think we're trying to convince anyone either way.
Okay.
That's not what this is about.
I think that would be quite hard to do, because if you're telling, I mean, as I said, I don't want to talk about stuff you're not allowed to talk about, obviously. But in my head, I'm thinking, okay, so a narrative has to come out. Because it seems that there's 3 possibilities in this thing. Either the son did it, the dad did it, or an unknown third party did it. And it must be quite interesting, if you're not trying to sell a narrative, how that will then pan out.
What I'm finding interesting, though, is how much emotionally attached I am to who I'm playing.
Right, really?
So if I hear from outside sources, well, we think Robin Bain did it, because I become very protective of him.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's not to say that we're not doing things in the show that would lend that idea to in the consciousness of people watching it. But I'm playing a person, so I'm naturally connected to this person.
Of course. Who literally walked the streets at where I'm sitting right now, who literally was a person who was literally here, who had literal friends here. It's not some imaginary being.
And what's been really interesting for all of us is the fact that we are playing people who are no longer here, and who were killed in a very violent way. And so, we're sensitive actors, and so we're feeling it too. So we have a karakia at the beginning of the week, at the end of the week.
Oh, nice.
We have a psychologist available to us to discuss anything we need to discuss. Everyone checks in with each other. Is everyone okay? Because it's not. We're playing real people. We want to honour that. We want to honour their memory as best we can. But these people did not leave this earth pleasantly. And
also, it happened yesterday. It's not like you're doing a film about Napoleon, that you can't really offend anyone. However you pray, you're talking about someone who was here yesterday, and maybe what some people don't understand. And look, I don't understand this because I'm not an actor, even though I've done a few things here and there. When I was doing something on Shortland Street, when I played that security guard who was employed because of the rapist who was, I saw one of the actresses kind of have to go through on screen the emotion of having been part of that narrative, being raped. And so then what I got to witness afterwards was the absolute crap she went through, kind of coming down from the emotion she had to put
Yeah.
into that scene, because it's almost like she had to reach in and find something real to put that on screen, but it wasn't real, as far as we know. And then
Yeah.
it was. I guess it's that, that American fake it till you make it. If you fake it, sometimes it still impacts your body like it's real, like it still
Yeah.
feels real. It still has the same emotions, and even though it's made up. And I mean, I don't want to talk about acting. I don't know anything about it, but it would seem to me that would be the best kind of acting, somewhere you can reach down and grab something real, but then you've got the consequences of dealing with that real emotion.
And I tell you, I've had to reach down into very dark places to get to an emotional level for things that I've done.
Mm.
And I say a little prayer afterwards, or I give something back to the universe, or receive something from the universe, just to clear myself, because it all sounds very acty wankery, but you have to find something, especially when you're standing in front of 50 people. We're all going, we've got to shoot this before lunch. So, you have to go there. It's not pleasant. So if actors look after themselves spiritually, organically, collectively, then they're okay.
Is it something that you can talk about what your kind of outside the filming of this movie position was? Or is it something you want to hold on to? I also want to just remind you, as we are live streaming, so so whatever you say kind of is done. Then it's out there. There's no post edit here.
No.
But is like 12 months ago, if I said to you in a pub, "What do you think of that Bane murder?" Would you have had an opinion? And was it something you can share now? What you did think then?
I'm too close to it at the moment
Okay.
to comment, I'm afraid.
No,
I
don't be
appreciate the
afraid.
question, but I'm just too in it.
Yep.
That said, I've had whatever opinions I had in the beginning may now have moved occasionally.
Yeah. No, look, I don't want to go down a track that we can't go
No.
down, and I don't want to push you to a place which is not helpful to, I guess, your process, because you could be back in that process in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think, to be honest, my opinion on the actual event is relevant to anyone.
Yeah. Cool.
You know what I mean?
And maybe, hopefully, I mean, not to say that we'll talk about that anymore, but when you are in Dunedin doing a film, maybe hopefully my studio will be back open again and we can have a chat again. That'd be nice.
Absolutely, I'd love that. Yeah.
Rather than being in my bedroom, which I've slapped together some things.
I was admiring your soundproofing at the back there.
Yeah, well, actually, in front of me, I've got their little panels that I bought off AliExpress and never used.
Yeah.
Luckily, I had them at home because I've done up the studio that I'm in that's off-site with proper actual baffling. So in front of me, I've got 1, 2, 3 by 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got a wall of 12 of those panels as well. So when I speak this way, I don't get the echo coming back. So
well, I've got a little voiceover studio downstairs, and I've done the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with this whole kind of lockdown thing we're going into, how are you handling it? What's your daily action like? Is it a rehearsal, reading, family time for you, or what's going on?
Well, we've had a full house. All our kids are back, so there's 5 of us. My oldest daughter from Wellington's come back. We got her back just in time.
Right.
So there's 3 children. There's my wife and myself. My wife and I love to exercise, and our oldest daughter. So we will bike ride or do some stuff at home, work out at home.
Yeah.
And luckily, I have a lot of stuff to do around the property. So I've been having a lot of firewood delivered at arm's length, of course.
Yeah.
Our firewood guy, Jeff, who I'd usually help stack it, or he would usually help me, he's now just dumping it and leaving.
Yep.
So I have to stack it all under the house. So I've got another load coming today after I talk to you.
Right.
And in my shed out the back, I have a very sort of 100 square metre shed that I've been trying to find a rat. And we found the rat yesterday, so I got my wife to remove the rat because I'm too scared. Can you believe it? And so I've been cleaning out the top mezzanine part of the shed, and there's always something to do. So, it was a very long answer to a very short question. We're doing great at the moment.
Yeah.
What I'm loving is the fact that the world has slowed down a bit. I always felt the last year or two, for me especially, I felt I've constantly been running. or jogging or something, or panting, just to keep up. And it's been nice to, while we don't want people to get sick or die, and people, especially people lose jobs. I mean, that's heartbreaking. But I think if there is a positive out of this, we've all slowed down and stopped to take a look at the view or smell the flowers or just be.
I think
that's.
I think I can hear it in your voice as well when you use the word positive. Sometimes you kind of go because there's so much negative. But the way the way I think about it is byproducts. What byproducts will come from this?
Yeah.
And it's funny you talked about the work around the house. I was talking to someone yesterday, and I said, it's like like they talk about Christchurch being the garden city. It's like I imagine every property in New Zealand is going to be pristine at the end of 4 weeks. Everyone's done all their clear outs. Everyone's mowed all their lawns. They've finally got around to pulling those weeds and
And I have to say, a lot of people are going to be a lot healthier. Where we live, there's people walking, or a lot of cyclists, all sort of staying in their bubble, cycling around the area.
Yep.
I think we're all eating less takeaway food. We're pretty healthy in the house nowadays anyway, but there's the other side of that. We don't want all the people at McDonald's not to have a job.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know. But what do I know? I mean, God, I can only comment what I'm experiencing, but I can imagine for some it's not as positive and airy fairy as it is for me.
It does appear though that I was looking at the numbers this morning actually that it's always tough when this kind of becomes political because there are some people saying not doing enough. But I looked at a stat this morning, and if you look at there's a graph, and if I was in my studio, we'd bring it up on the screen and we could both look at it together. But I'm using OBS and Zoom. I'm not going to fuck around with it because I'll mess it up and we'll get shoved off here. But there's the graph that talks about number of cases and numbers of death. I mean, those graphs are everywhere. And we are the highest number of cases for only one death. So everyone below us, like if they've got 300 cases, are either one death or more. Some have got 300 cases with 16 deaths. I'm assuming there's a reason for that, or they're an elderly population or whatever. But I actually thought, I mean, 0 deaths is what you want. 1 death is a horrible thought, but that kind of spoke to me that getting into this, maybe not as early as places like Taiwan and South Korea, but on the earlier side, is hopefully going to mean a better outcome than could have been. Certainly better than some of those places like Italy, Iran, Spain, and certainly the US.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and they get the epidemiologists on to talk about things, and these people who study this for a career. It's been interesting what they've been saying. And of course, I'm guessing in Europe, because everyone lives so close together and on top of each other.
Yep.
It's more likely to spread in those big cities. New York's very compact.
Yep.
And everyone lives literally at arm's length, We're lucky in New Zealand that we have space around us and less people. Lucky is the wrong word, of course, but you know what I mean?
It is what it is.
And what one guy was saying yesterday on this podcast, they're not sure if certain people from certain countries are able to fight this differently than others. So people in Africa might have a different makeup in their body, how they respond to this virus.
Right.
Whereas they're different to people in Asia. Europeans might have a different chemical makeup, and so different things happen. So that's been interesting to me.
Interesting you would say that, because I noticed my ancestry through Ireland. I noticed that they've got a proportional wise, like they've got fewer cases than New Zealand, but they've had 100+ deaths. And I'm like, shit, if that was the case, if it was about kind of DNA versus immunology, it's like, shit, I've got those Irish genes there. I better doubly be careful then maybe. So yeah, but it's the other thing I think that some people are finding frustrating, other than the bigger picture, is things are changing. Like we're now being told the masks might be a good idea. Whereas 2 weeks ago it was like masks don't make any difference. So I'm hoping we get definitive, which maybe you can't, but we get definitive suggestions and answers sooner rather than later.
I think from what this guy was saying yesterday, we're all learning as we go. There's no book on it, and the book's being written as we experience it. So
Yeah, well,
You just don't know.
I was out yesterday for the first time in 10 days. I just shot out to the to get some fresh produce.
Did it line up?
Didn't, because I
Yeah.
know the people who run the store, so I turned up sort of right at closing time, and just got in, got out, wore my gloves. Yeah, I've got talk about health conditions. I've got psoriasis. For so people who don't know, it's kind of a skin condition, and so
Yeah.
I found that using the alcohol rubs actually burns me. So
Ah,
quite early on, I bought a few hundred of those. I was gonna say silicone gloves, gloves at dentists and stuff, whatever they're called.
yeah.
And when I was wearing them before, people were looking at me like I was a weirdo, and now everyone's
Yeah.
wearing them, and so I'm like, I just pull those on when I'm walking out the door, and we've been thinking about barriers, right? So you have barriers. So the door is a barrier. So I had a delivery come the other day, and that delivery had to cross the barrier, so we had to kind of decontaminate the
Yeah.
delivery. Whereas I think about my car door as being a barrier. So I walk down to the car, I then pull the gloves on, I then get in the car, then when I get out of the car, I take the gloves off, and that becomes the barrier sort of thing. So
Yeah.
that's sort of what we're doing, but it's impossible to be 100% safe, because then of course you bring the food inside, and then you got to, in theory,
Yeah.
decontaminate the
And
food. And
I'm the designated shopper for our family, and I also shop for my in-laws who live around the corner. So
right.
I have been, after I buy their stuff, I bring it home and I've been wiping it down. But again, you go, but hang on, I'll just wipe that down, but then I've touched that. So am I taking this back to to contaminate this? So it's a bit of a head space issue of what I've just done. You've got to backtrack. I've just been there. I've touched that. Um, it's not easy. I'm generally quite exhausted after been for a shop, because there's a lot to think about now.
Yeah, I was only in a shop for 20 minutes yesterday, and there was basically no one in it. There was two or three people in it, because it was basically the closing time. But even that, I'm just like watching and looking around, like, what am I? Okay, really going. Don't touch your face. Don't touch your face. Don't touch your face. Your brain is. It's like, I remember someone describing one of the reasons there's road rage is that when you're driving, you're already at a 9, because your senses are so
Yeah,
your senses are so heightened. You're like,
yeah,
that kid's walking on the side of the road. Watch them. That
yeah,
car's at the road. They're gonna, so you're already heightened. So it's actually quite easy to flump, to go over that edge for some people. And I felt like
yeah,
that in the shop yesterday. It's like I'm already heightened. And I'm like,
yeah.
everything's checking everything, watching everyone. Hey, that's a bit close. Stay back. I'll get this fruit, and so, yeah, it was
Of course,
it was exhausting. It was exhausting to go to the shops.
I can't imagine those frontline workers, though. What they experience, not only in the supermarkets but also in the hospitals, and just all day it's like that.
Yeah, yeah,
I
totally.
just, I mean, they're the true heroes out of all this. Is everyone who's dealing with us.
Yep, I said on another podcast earlier, in here in Dunedin, there's a rest home, and 9 of the people working at the rest home before the lockdown happened all agreed that they'd move in. So they left their families and they moved into the rest
Mm.
home, and that means the rest home then becomes the so-called bubble, and people aren't coming or going at all. And I
Yeah.
thought, and this is what I said to I think I might have been talking to Steve Wrigley about this. I said, we always have these Queen's birthday honours and that sort of thing, these things that people are awarded. And I'm like, those are the people that I want to see get
Absolutely.
them this year, like, so, I mean, no offence personally to Sir John Key, but, he gets his prime minister, he gets his rewards anyway. It's these people who are giving up their life for a month, 6 weeks away from their kids to look after elderly people, just because someone has to. They're the heroes this time around.
Well, I keep thinking of that line, and I think it was Armageddon, when when Bruce Willis said to the president, if we go and stop this meteor from coming and hitting Earth, we want to pay no taxes
Yeah.
ever again. And I think that's their reward. That should be their reward.
Yeah.
They don't get paid enough.
Well, that's the other thing. I just hope this doesn't turn into, we saw 9/11, and on our own level, we saw that horrific massacre in Christchurch, and the world turns into this gracious, grateful, loving, caring place that everyone else comes first and nothing's a problem for about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we go back. And I just, I was talking about the byproducts to come from this. Man, this is our, like my parents were born in World War II. So my grandparents were adults in World War II. And you hear about queues for bread, hear about that kind of stuff. And we're without the danger of bombs overhead, right? But for some of us, for most of us, we've never experienced anything like this before, especially if we're kind of born and bred Kiwis. And I hope that this flows on to something better afterwards. They say that the 50s and maybe even the 60s were sort of the celebration of getting over the 40s, and I just hope that this doesn't turn into 5 minutes of gratitude and then life as usual.
I know that. Well, yeah, no, I know, and not to top you on that story, but my grandfather was on the front line in World War Two.
Wow.
So, and he was not like 18, 19. So I can't imagine not only people here having to line up for bread, but being on the front lines. So, and it's not too much to ask for us to stay inside for 4 weeks.
Yeah, and I think that's it, isn't it? I mean, like 75 million people died across all campaigns during World War Two.
Yeah.
And I mean, no one's suggesting that 75 million are going to die from this, but probably millions will. And so you look at the outcome, you look at the deaths, you look at how it's impacting society, and on some levels this is, I mean, I know I don't want to talk about Trump necessarily in a positive light, but he talks about being a wartime president. I'm a wartime president, but he's sort of right. It's just a different kind of war. It's a war against this unseen, invisible enemy that unless we all band together and all fight together, we'll all lose.
Well, yeah, and that's the difference in all of this, isn't it? Apart from the immediacy and the impact it's having, is that it's unknown, and we're all looking to each other, going, "Do you know what's happening?
Yeah,
maybe you and I are going to have to come together on this because we need to work it out."
Yeah, and that's the I don't know thing, eh? I mean, you said to me before we went live stream and during the live, how are things? I'm like, I don't really know. I don't. I do feel really lucky and really blessed, and I work in a digital world on some level, so I can kind of continue on with what I'm doing. In fact, I'm getting busier because people are available all of a sudden to have a chat and do this sort of thing. But I don't know. Like my kids are with their mum for the full 4 weeks, and I said this yesterday. I'm lucky enough that we're neighbours, so we still have that interaction. I get up on the deck and talk over the fence for 20 minutes and catch up and stuff. So I'm lucky. But I can't give them a hug, it's something we've decided to do. And I so much of life is I don't know at the moment. And I wonder as well, I was watching a YouTube clip last night with a evangelical Christian trying to convert an atheist because I'm a sadist and that's the kind of television I watch. And the atheist was going, it's okay to say, I don't know. And the evangelical was like, I have all the answers. They're in this book. And the guy was going, I don't know the answer to your question, but that doesn't mean I default to your question being the answer. And I was just like, and this is not, I'm not making a position on their conversation, but I'm like, I think it's actually okay. The point I was making, it's okay to be in an I don't know stage. It's okay to say, look, I just don't know how I'm feeling. I don't know how happy I am. I don't know how it's going to be in 4 weeks' time. I'm just literally, it's the most one day at a time I've ever lived,
Yeah. Interesting thing, though, well, I've been thinking about this a lot, is that all of a sudden, from going from we don't trust the scientific viewpoint on climate change, they're all a bunch of hacks, and what do they know, it's all a big hoax, and now we need the scientists because we need to find a cure for this thing.
Yeah.
So that's, that's interesting to me.
The one question I've heard bandied about the internet, which I am most desperate to find out about, is when a vaccine comes along, what will the anti-vaxxers do? That's the thing I want to know most of all. Are they going to still reject it like all the others, or are they going to step up? It's like probably 24, 36 months ago, there was a measles outbreak in the Waikato, actually, around a school. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of anti-vaxxers became, we should get vaccinated for this because they didn't have that first world privilege of going, the herd will protect me. They were actually in the shit, so they had to do it. So I'm interested to see what, speaking of science, what will happen with those lovely group of people once this hopefully finds one.
A friend of mine put it recently. They said, this is Mother Nature telling us all to go and think about what we've done to the world.
Time out. So there's 4 weeks time out. Well, that's happening as well, aren't there? Their streams are clearing up, and these are the byproducts. I'm
Yep.
interested. People were saying we've got till 2022 for climate change, or else there's nothing. Will this 6-week break to the Earth, will that go? Oh, actually, we've got till 2030 now. That's how much
Yeah,
it's
maybe.
reset itself.
What
And
I'm liking too is the fact that usually I'd be filling up my car once a week, but I've had this. It's been at the same level of petrol usage for 10 days.
yeah, I actually filled my car up. My sister gave me the idea. She was in Auckland and she was like, I'm going to get petrol in my car. I was talking to her on the phone. She was like, fuck. And there's like 20 cars lined up. And I went, oh, okay, that sounds like that might be a good idea. So I went down to my little local Dunedin one and there was one car in the forecourt. I was like, oh, chair. So I pulled up
Yeah,
and filled up. And then I thought, well, while I'm here, you never know what's going to happen. So I've got like a 20-litre petrol container for my lawnmowers and stuff. So I filled that up as well. And like you say, I've got a little excess and I've used I've driven a total of about 20 Ks. So I've used
yeah,
nothing.
right. One thing I'm looking forward to at the end of all this is all the new music that's going to be coming out from all the musos at home in their home studios, working on stuff by themselves for 4 weeks and uninterrupted.
Well, art in general, I guess,
Right?
eh? I mean, I know
Yeah,
I know of someone. I spoke to a English comedian, the first one of these I did online, and he's writing a sitcom at the moment. And I
right.
guess because he's had to cancel all his festival appearances, well, they've been
Yeah,
cancelled on him, and he's spending this time finally doing the sitcom idea that he's been thinking about for
that's
two or
right.
3 years.
Yeah, so there'll be a lot of great scripts coming out, a lot of ideas for TV shows, a lot of great art, as you say. So yeah.
Are you someone who works in that part of the creative world? Do you like creating original content as well? Have you got a few scripts up your sleeve, or are you
I,
more just you like
I,
performing it?
I have been working on some stuff, but it's probably more. I like to just do it, and luckily I've been very busy in the last little while, so I haven't had a lot of time. But so I feel like because if I'm working a lot, my creative output is big health is being nicely caressed and nurtured, so I don't really need to do any more.
Yep.
And I'm not terribly ambitious when it comes to that. I should probably get a little more ambitious, but I've got a few ideas I like to put out there. Yeah,
Are
yeah.
you and obviously not to get into your personal finances completely, but this break for you and with the work you've had and got, I guess, lined up afterwards, financially for you, is this basically a break, or is this a concern financially?
Both. It's a nice break, but I wouldn't want it to go on for too long.
Right,
But I'm very conservative anyway, so
right. Meaning
yeah.
what is it? This is 40. Have you seen This is 40, the movie?
No,
It's a comedy movie. It's Judd. I was going to say Judd Hirsch. No,
Judd now,
Judd
Judd
Apatow. Judd Apatow.
Apatow. Yeah.
And his wife Leslie Mann opposite Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd was
Right.
Ant-Man, eh? Is that right? Paul Rudd?
Yeah.
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 I mean, Judd Apatow and Paul Rudd do a lot of stuff together.
Yeah.
And the movie is about, turning 40. This is
Yeah.
40. And about Leslie Mann turning 40. And there's some really funny scenes in it. Like she goes to her doctor and the doctor goes, I thought you were 39. And the nurse goes, your records say you're 38. And the receptionist goes, our records say you're 40, because she's been jumping all over the place. And but one of the things that happens is I've got a reason for telling this story. But Paul Rudd's character owns a record label and he wants to produce a bunch of old rockers music. He wants to put out a new album for big artists from the 70s. So he does that and he puts this artist album out and it doesn't sell. And the artist goes, oh, did you want the album to sell? And Paul Rudd's character goes, well, of course, I'm banking on it. And then as this, this 1970s rocker gives him this lesson, he goes, what you need to do is keep a small nut. If you keep your outgoing small, if you keep your debt ratio small, and you have a small nut, which is what he calls it, that's how to live your life.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about, is it Ed Begley Jr., who still lives in a really small house somewhere in Los Angeles
Yeah.
and rides his bike around, and people who are in the arts who get, decent paychecks from a movie or a TV or an album,
Yeah.
and they don't live exorbitant lifestyles
Well,
is the way to go.
Apparently Zach Galifianakis, who was in The Honeymoon, whatever it is,
Yep.
with Bradley Cooper, he's had the same shitty old Toyota for like 10 or 15 years.
Wow.
And other friends of mine who are doing well in Hollywood, they live pretty easily and don't spend a lot of money. They don't need to have Ferraris. If they can afford them, they just don't want them. So yeah, it's times like these you like to think that you work for what's important and you try and reflect on what's important.
Would it be fair to say that in working in the arts, and I mean, you work in film and television, but you're also a muso as well, that chasing the dollar would be the one thing to kind of drag you away from the authentic artist kind of artistic output? Like if the focus, like money needs to be the byproduct, not the focus.
Totally. Although, admittedly, I have been on the other side of that, where I've gone, I need to try and start making money, and I'm gonna, if it means I sell out and do a Bruce Willis movie in Hollywood that pays me a lot of money, I'll do it. But I've also do have a very strong sense of it is about the art. I've got a family to feed. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But the project is more important than the financial reward.
Have you ever had that opportunity? Have you ever had kind of a good payday and you've gone, yeah, it's just not a good fit for me?
Yeah, I've worked on big movies where I've gone, this is my dream, and I'm just not really enjoying it. I'm sorry, because there's no soul.
Right. Wow.
Big American films, they have a lot of money and they look after you, and I'm very grateful. They drive me everywhere, and I get a trailer and blah blah blah. But sometimes you just would love to go back to making a New Zealand drama where you're not being put in a trailer and being pampered and driven everywhere, because there's something a bit more real about it.
One of the funniest things about being pampered that I've seen recently is the Mark Twain Awards with Dave Chappelle accepting his Mark Twain Award. If you haven't seen it, or if other people out there haven't seen it, look up Jon Stewart's speech to Dave Chappelle at the Mark Twain Awards. And when he talks about how, I don't want to spoil it, it is actually one of the funniest things on the internet, when he talks about what happened to the $50 million that Dave Chappelle turned down when he walked away from his show. All right. So I'm not going to spoil it, but people should look it up. It's on YouTube. It's on the Mark Twain official kind of website. And I've just noticed actually that Mark Twain Awards with Dave Chappelle has just come to Netflix.
All right.
Yeah. So I noticed it the other day.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen
and I haven't seen the whole thing, and I'm quite keen to see it. But yeah, the Jon Stewart is just, he's like, how they used to talk about, what is it? Judy Bailey was the mother of the nation. Well, Jon Stewart seems to be sort of the father or grandfather of comedy. He's not necessarily the best out there sort of thing, but he seems he seems to be the guy that almost carries the moral standing and speaks on behalf of society so very well compared to most people.
I like him a lot. He's sort of stepped away from the spotlight a bit, hasn't he, over the years?
Well, it seems that actually he's doing some stuff with Chappelle. I've seen him on a few interviews recently doing a bit more stand-up stuff. But when he went away from the Daily Show, he's worth $100 million. So I mean that's what the insider and the net worth places kind of say. So he wanted to pass it on, and he wanted to pass it on in good times, which he did to Trevor Noah. And if you've got other things to do, why wouldn't you? I mean, that's like Jerry Seinfeld. Yeah. Jerry Seinfeld's worth $1 billion, and now he basically does this little, basically a podcast, even though it's getting Netflix money now, talking about cars with his mates. I mean, if you could, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't?
And I have friends who've worked in Hollywood and done very well, and they've left and gone, I just don't want to do it anymore. It's I think I have a friend on a very big show in America who's the lead, and last time I talked to him, he was like, yeah, the show's going great, I'm making a lot of money, but that's it, this could be it. And I remember going out for a drink one night in America after doing a day on Sons of Anarchy with Titus Welliver, who was playing my boss. Remember the Irish boss? He was my boss in the show.
Yeah.
Him and I became good mates, and he took me out and he said, hey, we're going to go out and have a drink with the guy who was the lead in Nip Tuck. I can't even remember his name. Nice guy. He made a lot of money over 6 years, but I said, so what's he doing now? And he said, I haven't worked in years. So, you can have all the rewards and the monetary satisfaction from what you're doing, but if you're not doing anything, it means nothing.
Right. Wow.
So yeah, and I have a lot of friends who are great actors who just won't go near Hollywood. It's just not for them.
Oh, I sometimes wonder, and I wonder this a bit about Taika actually, and obviously you know Taika. I wonder if Taika kind of does one for them, a couple for me. You know,
Yeah,
I'll do one for you. It's not like he's selling his soul. I mean, Thor Ragnarok broke the mold on other
yeah.
superhero movies because it had that flair that none of the others had. So it wasn't like a selling his soul, but you know, you earn the money on that one, then you come away and you do
Totally.
what we do in the shadows, the TV series, which was amazing.
Right.
I actually
Yeah.
think this is might be controversial to some, but I think the TV series is better than the movie.
Is that right?
Oh, amazing. So
Great.
good.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's just so good. You know, there's very few television programs that you kind of go have to watch, have to watch. It was one of them for me.
Mm.
Now I would recommend that to anybody. And I wonder if there
Um,
are many people who do that sort of thing. You know, I'll make some money on this one. I won't sell my soul,
yeah.
but it's not my dream job. And then I'll go do a couple of indies or something and do what I really want to do.
There's also an element of too. You know, if I was offered the lead in a big Hollywood production, of course I'd do it. Just because, why not? Why wouldn't I? And then you can say you've done one. And I think that might be partly true with Taika. As you know, being offered to direct Thor, of course you're going to take it. Why not?
Yeah.
But then he does balance it out with, well, I want to make Jojo Rabbit, and I want to do something else, and then I want to do my thing, and then so he's got a sense of it on.
How did you feel? I mean, I was thinking about Jermaine Clement the other day. Jermaine Clement.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
around him he's got Brett McKenzie with an Oscar, Taika with an Oscar, and he's kind of still sitting a little bit in the middle there.
yeah.
But you were obviously, well, I imagine you must have seen that live. You must have been watching it and watching him get it. How did it
Yeah.
feel? How did it feel to someone who knows him?
I texted him during the day just to wish him luck, and we haven't spoken in a while because he's so busy. But he texted me straight back, and it was lovely to. And he said, "Thanks, man. I miss you." And so so I could tell he was a bit nervous.
Did you think he was going to?
Curious.
Oh, dude, I've never seen him
I
so.
would be.
I've never seen him so flabbergasted speaking. I think when he got up there, he was massively overwhelmed. I mean, he was still funny and he was still, but there was
Yeah.
something different about that speech he made where
Oh,
you're like, oh, dude, this is bigger than you realized. I think this has got on top of you, understandably
well,
so.
I would probably wet myself. I mean, to be standing up there in front of 1 billion people, in front of all those people you probably consider your peers in the business. Yeah, it's terrifying. I mean, I don't know how anyone would be. So, but he handled it well,
Yeah.
and he's got an Oscar,
Yeah.
and I haven't. So,
Yeah.
not many of us do.
Is
So
that
good on
something?
him.
Is that something that matters? Like, is that something that, as an actor, you kind of go, "I would want one," or is it again? Does that become a byproduct of the work?
Yeah, of course I would love to get one, but if I don't, I'm not going to die sad about that. I've held one. I've held one in Wellington. When I did Lord of the Rings, one of Richard's. So I've held one. You
Yeah,
can say that.
yeah, yeah. I've done
Heavy.
that. That's probably more than 99% of the world, 99.99%
Yeah.
of the world. Just even holding
Uh,
one.
yeah. I mean, it's. Luckily, I get to work with some of these people on occasion, which to me is reward enough as well.
Yeah.
Whether it's a good experience or a bad experience, but they're generally pretty good experiences, and they're just normal people.
When you were doing Sons of Anarchy, did you have any interaction? I can't remember the exact scenes and stuff you did, but with Ron Perlman, were you actually in with
Yeah,
him?
yeah.
What's he
Interesting.
like?
Well, those guys, we did the big sort of climax, which is Ep 6 or whatever it was, when we had the big standoff and the big fight. And I hadn't really worked with all the guys as a group.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I think his name's Jimmy with the big scar around
Yep.
him. Tommy.
He's in
He
Braveheart
was
as well.
right. Well,
Yeah.
he was one of the few out of all those guys that every time he saw me, he said, "You're all right, brother. You're all right, brother." Even in I'd be in the van with all these guys driving to set, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, what am I doing? I can't do this. I can't do this." And surrounded by all these guys, and one of them, Mark Boone, who's the big hairy guy in the gang. You know him? I've forgotten what he's doing.
Yeah.
We did a movie together here in New Zealand,
All right.
so I already knew Mark. And Dayton, who played the old cop, he would come to my agent's house for barbecues and stuff. So we sort of got to know each other. But as a collective, and you're on a big TV show, it's quite intimidating, especially if you're from New Zealand,
Yeah.
not particularly ambitious like me. So it wasn't until they saw all the boys saw me doing a part of the sequence where I was reacting to them shooting at me and blah blah blah. They all suddenly went, actually, he knows what he's doing. Hey man, come and sit with us. Come over and sit here. And so it took a while for them to realise that I wasn't just some day player who was not particularly good. But they realised, oh, he's all right. So I ended up having lunch with them, and I had lunch with Ron Perlman one day on set, and he's Ron Perlman. Yeah, he would salute whenever we drove to set in our van, because they have security guards. They have cops with guns on set at all times.
Wow.
They're hired security. And if you're shooting, I shot something down in Hollywood once, and I was shooting in Capitol Records, so we had to go from the unit base to the Capitol Records, which meant crossing the road. And so they had their security guy, who's a police officer with a gun, stopping traffic for us. And it's partly insurance as well. If we get hit by a car,
sure.
We could sue them. And so every time we drove to set when I was in the van with Ron Perlman, he would salute the cops, like in an old Western,
Yeah.
Which is, it's not something I would do, but that was, he's that kind of guy. But he's a good dude.
Of the American culture, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service.
There is that, absolutely. And I was on a show once, and I heard this guy saying outside of the trailer, "Yeah, my son just got back from Iraq," and so this person who was talking to him said, "Oh, please say on behalf of all of us here, we're grateful for his service." So that's part of the everyday culture. Yeah.
I was going to say Hellboy, the original Hellboys. Some of my favorite movies. That's why I'm a huge Ron Perlman fan.
He's actually, he's Ron Perlman. He's a bit of a cowboy, I suppose, but in a good way. He's harmless and he's a nice guy. I mean, I think he struggled a long time before he made it because of the way he looks. Big jaw, big face, But I think, those guys, when you're on a successful show like that, you can either go one way with the attention and the success, or go the other.
Yep.
Down the slippery slope, and thankfully most of them had their heads screwed on. So.
Do you think your look has helped you? I know we talked earlier about, the casting agents, 95% of the decisions made once you walk in, because you were getting cast kind of as the bad guy for a while. Do you think that strong jawline and that was a part of that? I
think so. Maybe my high cheekbones. My mum always said, I don't know where you got the cheekbones from. It's not in the family. I say to people, I got them off the internet. Yeah, I think it's partly too, people go, who can play crazy? And I go, oh, Joel Tobeck. Yeah. And I get to release all the demons on camera.
Yeah.
On when I do a job. So I'm pretty low key in real life.
So the on-screen stuff, it's cathartic at times. You do get to release a bit of aggro and stuff out there.
Totally, yeah. I mean, it's fun too, because the bad guys, you can do what you like.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people who have played who have played that kind of, the hero all their life, whether it be a Matt Damon or you've mentioned Bruce Willis, that when they get an opportunity to play the bad guy, they fucking love it.
Well, you can just drop it all and just go for it. And I say to young actors, do your thing until they tell you not to. So do whatever you think is the right way to play this role until they tell you not to do it. And when it comes to playing bad guys, that's the perfect chance to do that.
Well, that's sort of the same as business, isn't it? They talk about going narrow but going deep. You sell that one product but sell a billion of them. Like, do that one thing and do it well for as long as you can, sort of thing.
And in America, I was particularly pigeonholed more so than here. But and I would say to my agent, but look, in Australia, I play lawyers and I play politicians. He said, no. Over here, you're the bad guy. And it's like, okay, well, he said once, when I auditioned for True Blood, he said, so I said to the casting people, he looks like a fucking werewolf. So that's in their psyche, So, but I'm not complaining, man. People would say to me, aren't you sick of being the bad guy? It's like, dude, it feeds my kids.
Are you? Speaking of that, do you do anything else? Like, do you teach, or do you lecture, or do you do anything else? Or is it literally that's acting and that's it? That's your gig?
No, I have been teaching. The last few years, I've been teaching at the Actors Program up here in Auckland. I go in for the holiday program and I do about a week when I can. Peter Feeney, who's a lovely actor, has some classes in Auckland that I teach at. And so they're all generally people who are sort of just starting out, which I really like. So yeah, I'd like to explore that more. So I enjoy it, and it's amazing how much you realise once you start talking to people who are just starting out about it. You know what I mean? And passing on your knowledge. And my approach is fairly organic. I don't get too technical or you must feel and blah, blah. I just sort of go, it's all about trusting your instincts. So that's how I've done it.
I remember doing I did a postgraduate diploma in drama at Auckland University.
Yeah.
And I remember having this little light going in my head about the natural element, about being natural when you're in a character. And the lecturer there got us to lie down like we were asleep.
Yeah.
And everyone, they lay and they kind of lay a certain way. And I just fucking lay on my stomach with my arms under because that's how I sleep.
Perfect.
And they were like, yeah, that looks like you want to go to sleep. And I'm like, well, actually, I'm a bit tired. I kind of felt like the natural way to do it. It was just, it felt real. And I wonder, does that there become a, you look at although Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems is brilliant. Have you seen Uncut Gems?
He's great. Yeah,
it's awesome. Fucking brilliant. But up until that point, he seems to just play himself in every movie, which I like. I like silly Adam Sandler movies. It's not a criticism.
So do I.
Is it as much of a curse as it can be a blessing that if you get stuck in those roles? I mean, maybe a little bit you with the criminal in America, that then you can't get out of it and then you are restricted in opportunities.
Well, I was blessed and lucky in the fact that I could leave America and go to Aussie and play a politician or a lawyer.
Right.
I spread myself around a bit, and so I played less bad guys in Aussie than I have in America or New Zealand. So down in New Zealand and Australia, it's you audition for the role, and if they like you, you get it. It's not like, well, he wasn't the bad guy in that last thing,
right? Which
is a bit more of the way it works up there. But as I say, it's a job's a job, man, and if it's what I do, it's what I do.
So if you could like pick out some stuff that you wanted to do, I mean, I don't want to play silly. I hate those interviews. This is not an interview, but where they have those loaded questions like, if you could 100 million, what would you? And I'm just like, that makes me sick asking those. I literally feel sick in my stomach with those sorts of things. But I am interested in like if you. Could achieve. I mean, you talked about everyone would like to win an Oscar, but do you have any little things you'd love to do? Like, some people would say, working with Woody Allen, or they have these kind of yardsticks, which are their big ones that I would love to do. A lead on a sitcom for 10 years. I would love to, whatever it is. Is there anything that if you could flick the switch, you'd really like to do?
It's an interesting question because I feel like I've done everything I've wanted to do. In the sense that I've had such a varied career that I've sort of played all the roles I've wanted to play. So I guess I would say that if I could play the funny guy in a comedy for 5-6 years, and I was given free rein as a comedian, or as the character had free rein. When I did Shortland Street 5 years ago, my character Jimmy was an ex-muso, bit of a dope, and so I hammed it up, and I just did my thing until they told me not to.
Yep.
And I loved that because I got to play, and so if I could do a sitcom like that for 5 or 6 years where I got to play every day, like Adam Sandler gets to play every day in his movies.
Yeah.
I would do that. Would be a dream job for me.
Dude, I heard that Adam Sandler, unless he was just taking the person, he might have been, was basically saying they find a location, they find a good time of year, he gets his mates together and they go and film a movie. Whether it's Grown Ups or Grown Ups 2 or whatever, and that's what they do.
He's got the money and the resources to do that, and good on him. And ideally, that we'd all love that, to be able to go, hey, I feel like making a movie. Let's go and make one.
Let's go to Tahiti. It's like you hear stories about Leonardo Dicaprio doing The Beach, that they just lived on a super yacht for 2 or 3 months and partied the whole time and filmed during the day. Kind of had to get up to do the filming, but then spend most of their time partying in these most beautiful, idyllic settings in the world.
And listen, if I could work with Taika and Jermaine every day, I mean, say no more.
Would that be the dream?
That'd be awesome. I loved working with those guys. It was a very short period of my life, but I catch up with Jermaine every now and again, and down there, and he's a great guy. He's funny. I love him as a performer. I just think he's so in the moment, everything he does, and I just, if I could Work with him, Taika every day, and Johnny Bruff and those Cohen Holloway. Yeah, what a dream!
Nice.
They're geniuses. They're to me they're the pinnacle of I don't want to say comedy, but of what they do. Yeah, yeah. I don't want to pigeonhole them because they're more than that. Because Cohen's a great dramatic actor as well.
Yeah.
I think those boys are just the ultimate. And Reese,
I think Taika's been around for a long time. I'd love to podcast with him one day, because the one thing I want to talk, there's two things I find most hilarious. The first is not that he played Hitler, but if you go to his Wikipedia page, there is a Hitler link next to his name, and I actually think that's funnier. So because when you click on that link, you're on Hitler's actual page. And I actually think that's funnier than he played Hitler in the movie, because like Hitler is like one step removed from him on his Wikipedia page.
Yeah, right.
And the other one is that he did that alien character in Radi Radi Ra, TV3 skit series.
Yes,
God, that was the funniest character ever.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, from you guys who know him, was it actually a real surprise that he was that successful with the script, or was it the kind of thing that you went, you know what, you could always see that much talent in the boy?
Yeah, in all honesty, I didn't really get to know him until after he had won for Two Cars One Night, or was nominated. After that came out, and then we did Eagle versus Shark. So I knew of him, and we'd maybe met a few times, but it wasn't until then we really got to know each other. So, of course, doing that movie, you go, well, this guy's onto something. And so definitely with Jermaine on board, and of course Lauren Taylor, who was the lead in that, a good friend of mine, she's now making her own movies. Those guys, I mean, it was to hang out with those guys in Wellington for that short period was just awesome, because they're funny, talented, charming, all of those. So you're doing Eagle vs Shark, and seeing, of course, Two Cars One Night, you knew he had something.
Well, all right. Well, listen. Let's wrap it up. I guess the last thing I was wondering is, after what's the Bane one called?
Black Hands.
Black Hands.
There's a podcast called Black Hands which came out 2 or 3 years ago.
It's on Stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's not based on that.
Right. Okay.
The name is similar, but that's as far as it will go.
So once that's done, obviously the world has been put back by 3 months or whatever it's going to be. Yeah. What else is in the forecast for you?
There's a show that starts on TV1 soon called One Lane Bridge that I was privileged to be in. Mm-hmm. We all going well. We'll make another series at the end of the year. This person, Lauren Taylor, I was talking about before, who was the lead in Eagle vs Shark, is making a film, and I was due to start on that in May. Just do a few days on that, so there's that as well. I have some regular voice work stuff that I do, thank God. Grateful. So yeah, but at the moment, I guess, like everybody, it's day to day.
Yeah.
I hope that everything comes back to a place of something where we can all start moving again. So.
I'm sure. Well, I've noticed I've been, we'll have our little phones around these days. There's been a few updates as we've been talking. There've been a few notices that Jacinda's had press conferences, and isn't it funny? I love that we call them Jacinda, eh? And it was like Helen, Jacinda, John. But they don't do that in America. But and so I don't know if anything new's been announced yet. I don't want to speak to that, but I hope. I was talking to my old man last night, and he goes, "How long do you reckon this will last for?" He's 80 in May, and in a retirement community, so he's in an apartment. And I'm like, dude, I don't know. It's obviously it's the 4 weeks. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was 6. I also wouldn't be surprised if it was 5. It feels like 4. I would be lucky to get out of here at 4. But I guess
I'm not sure they're just going to say, okay, everyone can move around now. I think they're going to gradually.
Well, you look at those numbers each night as well. We're in the Southern DHB, and the Southern DHB looks awful at the moment because there was that fucking wedding in Bluff where 55 people have come out positive from a wedding, and it's like that has skewed everything down here. And there was also a conference at the Hereford in Queenstown where it had 10 or 15 people out of there. So it's it'll be interesting, like you say, whether they'll say, okay, Christchurch looks pretty clear, so you can go to level 3, and Mana 2 looks clear, so you can go to level 2, or what exactly they'll do, I don't know, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I can't answer anything.
Well, what we can say is thanks for joining us, dude. This has been a blast.
That's all right. Yeah, I'd love to come and see you if I ever get down to Dunedin as well.
Is that a possibility? Is it a possibility that exteriors won't be shot in Dunedin? Like, is there a possibility?
I'd say so. Yeah, we need to shoot something because we need to shoot stuff in Tahiti Bay.
So it has to be in there. They couldn't fudge it.
Ideally, we'd love it to be in the actual location. Yeah. So,
well, dude, we'll stay in touch when you're down here.
Yeah.
We'll certainly get you in. If I'm allowed back in my studio, not actually allowed in there right now,
okay.
and we'll get to a bit more than just this horrible one camera shot that I'm looking down the barrel at, seeing all my imperfections, and go back to our proper set.
My silly moustache. Thank you so much.
All right, dude. Have a good one.
Yep. See you, everybody. Thank you.